Pre-season's taught us a lot, and we're going to discuss that in this video. Not only what Arsenal might be doing in terms of new tactics for the 24-25 season, but more specifically as well, how Mikel Merino fits, have to be honest, like a glove in this team, especially when you look at the way we're setting up with that left centre midfielder. Hopefully that deal gets done. Everything is suggesting that it's going to. It's just taking a little bit of time, like the Calafiori deal. So I want to talk about in this video how he fits really, really well, along with what we've seen in pre-season from Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, who are evolving again. But we're now getting to a point where Arsenal are doing so many different things that maybe in the earlier years you could see a very specific pattern that Arteta was really trying to drill into the team. Now they do so many different things in one game that it's actually becoming more difficult to spot these kind of patterns. There are certain things though that feel really deliberate, feel really particular, especially the improvements on the left-hand side. Arsenal last season channeled most of their football down the right-hand side. Mikel Arteta actually said in an interview, it wasn't an interview, it was a press conference, that the combinations between Ødegaard, White and Saka was something he doesn't really want to break up. And last season it was massive to Arsenal's success. When you look at some images I've got here, because I really wanted to get evidence of the whole season to show you why Arsenal had focused so much of their football down the right. But here are just individual games where Arsenal went 42% down the right hand side in one game. This is around the Brentford game. I think it might actually have been the Brentford game. Another one here, 37% of the attacks down the right. But actually the best example I can give you is this from Cannon Stats, where you can see that in the game against Everton, where we needed a goal, we went 1-0 down on the final day of the season, wanting to win the Premier League title, you can see here that the combinations, the passing sequences, the positioning was all focused down the right. That's actually where the equaliser came from when Tomiyasu scored. And actually a lot of our football, as you can see from the size of William Saliba's circle, Thomas Partey's, Ben White's, the size of the lines, it tells you that so much of Arsenal's football, when it mattered most, was channelled down that side. So Arsenal are a team that last season focused heavily on the right, but in pre-season have tried to focus more down the left. And you can see it with a few various sort of bits of data. Let's look at the average positions against Lyon. As you can see here, they're attacking from top to bottom, and you can see the closeness of number 29 Kai Havertz, number 17 Zinchenko, number 41 Declan Rice, number 11 Gabriel Martinelli, a lot closer together and in a much sort of more condensed cluster than out on the right, where White, Ødegaard and Saka, the three that Arteta has talked about, and that combination that he finds so important to this team, they're not as close together as the left hand side. They actually don't have the same numbers either, which in terms of sort of players there to help out. And I think you've seen this throughout pre-season. If you look at Declan Rice's position, you can see how that's been really focused as well, with being a lot closer to Martinelli, hitting that channel a lot more, and a lot more of his focus being down that side. A really key player, £100 million midfielder, and we're wanting him in that left channel playing line. Now that's interesting on the Merino front, which we're going to come back to. But talking about this left hand side and addressing that, in terms of pre-season goals, Arsenal have scored in the areas attack. We've scored 10 goals in pre-season, 4 against Leverkusen, 2 against United, you know the rest, with 5 of them coming down the left. I mean, think of the Reece Nelson run against Bournemouth when he whips it in to Fabio Vieira. Think of Nwaneri crossing from the half space against Man United. Think of Martinelli driving at the fullback against Man United. Think of the Havertz cutback to Zinchenko when he fires it into the far corner. All happens down the left. Arsenal have really... And by the way, it could actually be 6 goals technically down the left, because the Liverpool goal I put down as a set piece. But Arsenal really funneled a lot of their football down the left-hand side, where last season it didn't feel we had the patterns. It didn't feel we had those sort of combinations of that understanding down that left like we did on the right. In pre-season, it's kind of been the opposite. Now, how does this work with Merino? Because the addition of Merino and the way we played in pre-season, it all feels geared up to getting him ready and getting the team ready for his arrival and what he will add. Let me go to the tactical pad, and the first thing I want to show you is Declan Rice's position and the way he was playing out on this kind of left channel, and the kind of things we saw a lot with this. Martinelli feeding it into Declan Rice, or let me say, that cut back to Havertz, I think is the ideal move. I think the run down that channel to cut it back to Havertz, or maybe cut it back to the edge of the penalty area from Martin Ødegaard, that is definitely something Arsenal would want to try. But really the pass I'm focusing on is this one, that channel pass from Martinelli into the half space to Declan Rice, who's made that underlapping run. This just feels made for Mikel Merino. And let me show you it, because it's the exact same thing. I've literally just swapped the players. When it's Merino making that run, being a left footer, it puts him on his stronger foot. It's a run that if you watch comps of him at Real Sociedad, he's made loads of times before attacking that space. It's not something he's not used to doing. It's something Arsenal did a lot when Granit Xhaka was still here in his final season. And when you play that pass from Martinelli to Merino, again, it's on his left foot. It's a lot more comfortable. The angles feel a lot better for everybody involved. I think that's what's really interesting about the Merino signing, is that if he does come in, does Rice revert back to the 6 so that you get a bit more of a specialist in that channel for the left 8? Having said that, I thought Rice did really well in the Lyon game in that left channel as well. But there's more about this too, because when Merino is taking out that wide position, what were we just saying about Declan Rice? That when he's out on that touchline, or when he's playing out on that left 8, he will hug that touchline to allow for this Martinelli to be that little bit more central, and here we go, that ball to be played from Merino into Martinelli. Then you've got your inside forward attacking that space. You've got your goal scorers. Think of the goal Martinelli scored against Leicester 2 years ago when Trossard played the ball from sort of out to in for Martinelli's run. But you also get this. Havertz can be a bit of a box presence, and Merino can whip it into the box. And what have we been seeing more in pre-season? Saka attacking the back post as well. So it's a really good fit. And dare I say, when the ball's on the other channel and it's Saka here, Merino can make that run from the left 8 space into that area there at the back post that we know Arsenal have attacked so well over the years, and well, over the last few years really, especially last season. I think Merino, when you look at some of these tactical shapes and setups, it does make you feel that he's really kind of made for that left 8 space, and he's going to be good in build up as well, because for everything I'm saying here, let's just open it back up. You could easily have Zinchenko hugging the touchline. We know that the fullback has played a little bit wider in the last year compared to 2 years ago. Martin's still in that channel, and Merino could be a little bit closer to build up, spraying passes into Merino, into Zinchenko, maybe into Havertz, and combining with Partey. So Merino just fits really, really well for the different tasks that an Arsenal number 8 would have in this team. What's so fascinating though about our build up and how that sort of, I don't know, taking on different variations in terms of a 3-3-4, in terms of 2 sort of inverting fullback, in terms of fullbacks being wide. We're going to touch on this more, by the way, at the end of this video, is when you look at Merino's numbers when it comes to passing compared to other midfielders across Europe's top 5 leagues, you see that his numbers aren't that great. Lots of people have covered this. His passing numbers aren't brilliant. When you watch him, he doesn't look like he lacks a pass. He doesn't look like he's not able to do what we need him to do in possession and build up. But again, maybe it removes responsibility that he can be a part of build up, but he can also get into that forward line. And that's why I think he fits really well. And the use of Havertz in pre-season is no accident, because I think Merino will actually replicate a lot of that, which is moving into the front line when we're trying to attack those channels, but actually moving back into the 4-4-2 shape to be a little bit closer to a Partey, a Rice, or a Jorginho when we're off the ball. And for all those things, he fits perfectly. Now, a couple more things I've noticed through pre-season. Havertz's position, really interesting, because if I showed you this average positions map, number 29, Kai Havertz, if I told you he started as the left 8 in this game, you'd believe me, wouldn't you? He didn't. He started as a striker, and he is deeper than 4 other players on that pitch, 2 of them central midfielders and 2 of them wide players. Wherever he's going to play, whether it's up front or in the left 8, even though I have a preference which is for him to be up front, he will always drop back into midfield and help out. And when he's playing in midfield, he will always move onto the forward line to stretch the pitch, stretch teams, and get into the blind side of defenders. And I just think that use of Havertz is going to alternate a lot through the season. We should probably get used to it. Against Lyon, as you can see here, he was the left 8, but look how close he is. Sorry, not against Lyon, against Leverkusen. Look how close he is to both Odegaard and Jesus, where he was in very different areas against Lyon. So the use of Kai Havertz has been interesting in pre-season. I think has taught us that Mikel Arteta is not quite ready to give up on the idea of using him in midfield either. Now, a couple more things I noticed from pre-season just to round off the video. Here we are. So, first thing I noticed, variation in build-up, which I thought was really interesting. One pattern I noticed, I thought this was interesting. A little bit of a 3-3-4 at times. Let me know in the comments if you agreed and you noticed this. Now, may I say, like I said at the beginning of this video, Arsenal have so many different build-up patterns that, to be honest, it might just be an accident they all ended up in this position at times. It might just be what they needed in the moment. It might not be instructed. Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, all very good receivers of the ball, all very, very good at understanding where to be to help out. But I did think something that was deliberate was White being a little bit more tucked in. He wasn't getting forward quite as much, so I don't think that's an accident. But whether a 3-3-4, so that maybe not Declan Rice, but Kai Havertz when he's in the left 8 can bomb forward and be part of the forward line, is something we might see a little bit more. Let's move on a little bit. Definitely saw this as well. Partey and Jorginho both dropping between the centre-backs at times, and then the full-backs holding the width a little bit. Like I said, White wasn't bombing on forward too much, but I definitely noticed them getting quite deep as a centre-back split. Now, we saw that in a different way, which I'll come to in a second. I saw this as well. Martinelli and Saka, a little bit more tucked in. A little bit more, like I said, whether it be Rice on the touchline, feeding Martinelli for that sort of inside channel run, or whether it be Saka actually holding a more inside position. Reece Nelson did it too, as we talked about in pre-season on a recent video. I just wonder whether that is something we'll see more of. Actually, our fullbacks being wider, but our wingers being a little bit more tucked in. I definitely saw this as well. Zinchenko in between the centre-backs. Now, Zinchenko's always had a little bit of a free role, so you could say, well, that's just Zinchenko's interpretation of what to do as he inverts. But Lewis Skelly, when he came on, did a very similar thing. He was moving into between the centre-backs and demanding the ball between them and trying to kickstart attacks like that. It's almost as if... I think it's illustrative, let me just explain it. It's almost like with White, Saliba, Gabriel, that's kind of, from Raya to them, that's kind of your first phase of the play. And then Zinchenko would be in the second phase, get it to him, and then you go forward. It feels like Zinchenko's dropping to be a little bit more of the first phase and receive it earlier and deeper to then play in our midfielders. I don't know if that's a correct interpretation from me, but let me know in the comment section below if you agree. But he was definitely getting the ball really, really early in build-up to the point where Gabriel was splitting so far wide just to be that guy who could then link it to Martinelli, which I thought was interesting as well. Sticking on Zinchenko as well, I thought this was interesting. The amount of times that, yes, he inverted, and we've seen him in this position before, but more specifically playing in this half space here, which I think is something Arsenal have needed, crossing and creativity from that area, and Bukayo Saka making runs to the back post for a, let's show it here, we'll do it in yellow as well, there we go, for a ball to the back post. Oh, sorry, I've got that bit wrong there. There we go. For a ball to the back post that Saka could attack. I definitely think we saw a little bit more of that from Zinchenko, and the run from Bukayo Saka to the back post was utterly deliberate. I've got no doubt about that. That was totally by design. So those are the couple of things I think we've noticed from pre-season and some of the tactical changes, tweaks, additions that Mikel Arteta has made. But I do think the more you watch Arsenal, the more you just completely understand why Mikel Merino is a great fit for this team. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with some of the points I've mentioned here? And what have I missed? Maybe I've missed some stuff. I'd love to know what you all think of all that as well. Arsenal kick off the Premier League this season. There'll be a Goonerverse podcast coming where Sharoy and a guest will be looking ahead to the Premier League season and more content as well, including some live shows, so look out for those as well. See you all very soon.